I voted what I believe in, and I felt heavy on my heart that it's the right thing. Sorry, I'm trying not to cry. My heart's broken. My grandma just sent me a very sad text. It broke my heart. And my mom has yet to text me back today.
Concepts of thoughts and prayers to you. Your family doesn't talk to you anymore because of your political beliefs. Oh no. I tried to see where you were coming from. Maybe you're close to your family, that's unfortunate. Imagine how it feels for people like me whose family thinks that they shouldn't exist or they're an abomination and that the law should dictate that way. Imagine how it feels to have your family disregard the validity of your existence because they don't agree with who you are. Imagine how people like me feel when their art is being banned state by state because of some negative rhetoric that has shined queer art as something that's predatory or pedophilic. Imagine how it feels to have a president be re-elected who on their first day of presidency took people like me out of the government websites. Imagine how we feel that a president who's been elected has openly talked about removing the Equality Act, taking away protections against discrimination. Imagine how people like me who strive for two presidential candidates on opposite sides of the spectrum, who strive for the same results, just have different opinions on how to get there. Yet we have to vote to defend our right to marry. We have to vote to defend our right to express ourselves through art. We have the right to get any federal job that we want and not have the risk of being fired or prosecuted because of the way that we are. Imagine how people like me feel knowing that a president in his first term took away protections that allowed federally funded jobs and supervisors to discriminate against us on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, and that wasn't against the law, it was okay, and they would still be federally funded. And after hearing the video, obviously you have kids. Imagine how people like me feel knowing we have a president who wants to take away my right to adopt, my right to foster, and my right to perform IVF or surrogacy, which can be evidentially backed up by the proposals he put into the Supreme Court in his first presidency and by the promises made to do it again in his second presidency. Your family stopped talking to you because you voted for a president. My family stopped talking to me because they think I should burn in hell forever and that I'm an abomination. I don't feel bad for you. You have the privilege to be able to vote because you think that's the right way. I have to vote so that I can protect my right to express myself and marry the person I love.
My heart's broken. My grandma just sent me a very sad text. It broke my heart. And my mom has yet to text me back.
Cry me a fucking river. When we say this is what you voted for, this is quite literally what we mean. She starts off the video by saying that this is gonna be her last political video. She's got those nice white woman tears. She's so upset because her family found out that she voted for Donald Trump, and now a chunk of her family no longer wants to speak to her. She's like, oh, my grandma sent me this really sad text. My mom hasn't texted me back today. You can vote for whoever you want, because I know that's what Trumpsters who see this video are gonna say. Everyone has the right to vote for who they want. Of course they do. However, how you vote also has consequences, not just on a grand scale with what those elected politicians will do, but yes, on a personal scale. People in your life will have a reaction to how you voted, and you don't get to then claim that you're a victim because people in your life are holding you accountable for that vote. You are not obligated to vote for anybody, and people in your life are not obligated to have a relationship with you. And as the conservatives like to say, cope harder.
I get asked a lot about what to do with MAGA family members, and I don't know. I don't know what to do with them, which is why I just choose not to interact with mine. But there are two things that I do know for sure. The one is that you should not accept abuse from anyone. And if someone can't respect a small boundary of yours, they are not going to respect a larger one. I think right now we are sort of tightening our belts on the idea of being comfortable, and it's no longer about doing the thing that makes us most comfortable. It's about choosing which discomfort we'd rather live with. One of those things where there is not a right decision, and sometimes when I'm confronted with these scenarios, the way to put it into perspective for myself is to look for the things that I'm grateful for. When it comes to these topics, which keep me up at night, my own personal relationships with my parents and talking about them on the internet, that keeps me up at night, but I am so grateful that that's what keeps me up at night. These are the decisions I have to make, not whether or not I'm going to flee the country, not whether or not my kids are gonna come home and have parents tomorrow because of the color of their skin. And when I think about it that way, cutting out the people who supported creating the environment for that to be the case becomes a lot easier. And honestly, as a white person, for me personally, it's the absolute least I could do.
2024 elections in America wasn't just about politics. It became something deeper and personal. For many people, it was about values like human dignity and whether the people they love still stood for the same values of basic human decency. So the question today is, when someone votes in a way that you feel threatens your right or your humanity, do you still call them family? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I appreciate your support, alright? Let's dive into it.
So my parents cut me off for supporting Donald Trump. My family disowned me. My cousins don't speak to me. I'm alone in this world, but you know, it's cool. And I'm going to fight for what I believe in. The Democrats love to brainwash black people into thinking that they're the best candidates for this country. But I ain't believing that shit. Make America great again. Trump, baby.
Would you throw away years of friendship because you found out your friend was a Trump supporter? So one of my friends, who's indigenous, found out that one of her friends is a Trump supporter. They've been friends about 6 or 7 years, and it just never came up in conversation. I think it could be because they might have just assumed the other one had the same belief system, you know, and it just didn't come up. Well, it came up today. So my friend said something about being upset about how Trump's administration wants to basically rewrite history and get rid of things in the African American community, in the indigenous Native community, the Mexican American community, just all of it. And then the other person went in. So my friend feels completely betrayed. She's like, how could you possibly? So she's confused. She's like, how could I have a friend who feels this way about people who look like me? So that is what she's going through. So what would you do?
Why y'all still breaking bread with people that would happily starve your children? So you've got family members who are Trumpers and you're bending over backwards to not talk politics so you can keep the peace. But see, my question is, why are you even dealing with them at all? Because none of this stuff is really just politics anymore. These people have told you with their actions that they support hate. Hate against people for their skin color, for who they love, for being poor, disabled, or even vulnerable. They made it clear they don't care about hungry children or the less fortunate. That's not politics, baby. That is character. So why are you actually keeping the peace? Because it's your mama, your daddy, your cousin? Let me ask you a question. Did your mama and daddy raise you to ignore behavior like that? Did they raise you to sit at a table with people who take a political stance that cruelty is a good thing? Or if they didn't, why are you lowering your standard right now to continue to deal with the same type of people that act like this just because they family? Even roaches have babies, okay? Family is not a magic reason to keep toxic people in your life. And let me make this really plain, especially if you have children. Because some of y'all want y'all kids to have a relationship with your parents or like their uncles or something, right? But a relationship with what exactly? With people who think like that? Who act like that? And then you come home trying to explain to your kids why the behavior isn't okay, while you still sending them over for Sunday dinner. Make it make sense, because your kids learn more from what you tolerate than what you lecture about. So remember, at the end of the day, y'all, you have a choice. You are not required to maintain a relationship with people that undermine your humanity or your children's humanity. For real, stop acting like a victim in a situation that you can just walk away from. Protect your peace, protect your children, and stop letting its family be the loophole that keeps you stuck in harm.
Well, this is a tough one, folks. I had to cut one of my uncles out of my life today. Very, very hard thing for me to do. I don't have a lot of family left that I'm close with. A lot of my family is dispersed and doing their own thing and whatnot. And this man was like a father to me. He's only a year apart from my dad. And so they were inseparable. They were always together. And this man taught me a lot of things and has always been there for me and a really important part of my life. But I sent him a video of the murder of the protester in Minneapolis today. And he said, yeah, I would have killed him too. And seeing that text just like broke my heart into like 1,000 pieces. This is not the man that I knew. This is not the same person. This is a person who's been radicalized by MAGA and made to think that things like this are okay. And not only okay, they're validated and they're good. I'm not going to have that in my life, folks. I'm not going to have somebody who's choosing darkness and hatred and evil in my life, because I firmly believe things like that are contagious, right? And I think that we have to shut them down, right? if he wants to walk that path of darkness, he's going to have to do it without me, without other members of my family who feel the same way. So it's very incredibly hard to do, because, you know, this man is older, you know, he's in his probably his late 70s. So, you know, there's a possibility that he could die before we reconcile. And that's hard. That's really fucking hard for me, because my dad is no longer here. And, you know, I don't have a lot of those male role models or, you know, people that I grew up with in my life anymore. Everybody's kind of moved on and doing their own thing. Now, I guess I'm sharing my story because don't be afraid to do this, okay? Hopefully he takes some consideration, you know. The last thing I said to him was, I've lost a lot of respect for you, take care. And then I blocked him. And he tried to call me, but it went straight to voicemail, and he just said, oh boy. I hope that's not our last interaction. I hope we can find a way through this, but I'm not going to sit by and have that in my life. And I don't think you should either.
People keep saying don't let politics ruin friendships or relationships. Y'all are missing the bigger picture here. I am not upset with you for being a Republican. I am not upset with you for having a different political view than me. I am upset, however, that racism wasn't a deal breaker for you. That homophobia wasn't a deal breaker for you. That sexual assault wasn't a deal breaker for you. 34 felonies was not a deal breaker for you. And that is a deal breaker for me.
You may not want to believe this, but it's time that you accept it. If you have any family or friends who are MAGA, then they are evil. They are either evil, or the best thing that could possibly be said for them is that they are so breathtakingly stupid that they don't fully understand what it is they're supporting. And that level of stupidity at this point in time is a willful stupidity. It's a choice. It's not a stupidity for which there is any legitimate excuse. It's a choice. And to me, that makes the difference between evil and this degree of stupidity, intentional, voluntary, a chosen stupidity. It makes the difference between those two things meaningless in my view. Whether you consciously, affirmatively choose to support this evil, or whether you choose to be so ignorant and oblivious as to what it is that you are supporting, there's no difference to me between those things. Both are evil. Both are empowering evil. And a lot of people who have MAGA family and friends have been struggling with this for a long time. They love these people. They have been a part of their lives. Maybe they are brothers or sisters or parents, grandparents, friends, spouses. And they just don't want to admit that these people are evil. And I understand that. You want to defend them. You want to convince yourselves that it's not evil. They've just been brainwashed. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're supporting. Maybe for a period of time, that argument may have carried some weight. There may have been some truth to that. But at this point, I'm sorry. You cannot excuse this. They are choosing evil. There is simply no way around that. You need to accept that. If you have someone in your life who is still MAGA, that person is evil. Now, do with that what you will. I would never presume to tell you what to do in your own personal relationships. But if you are trying to convince yourself still that they are not evil, you're just lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself almost as much as some of these consciously, intentionally ignorant people who are MAGA are lying to themselves about what it is that they're supporting.
He has said it all, but let me add my remarks, all right? So voting for some people is simply about policies, economic direction, or even party loyalty. But for others, political choices feel like a reflection of something more personal, a reflection of values, empathy, and the kind of society people believe that we should live in. And this is where the emotional weight comes from, because people are asking, how do you stay connected to someone who sees the world so differently from you? How do you maintain love, trust, or even friendship when those differences are not just political but morals? And what do you do when someone you care about makes a choice that feels to you contradicts your deepened sense of justice, dignity, and human rights? So these are not simple questions, and they are not easy answers. A parent looks at his child and wonders, how do they came to see the world so differently? A friendship that lasted for years starts to feel fragile after one conversation, and a sibling relationship begins to feel tense, And with that tension, people start to protect themselves. Some withdraw, some confront, and some set boundaries, and others, they decide to step away entirely, and not out of hatred, out of exhaustion, hurt, or even a feeling that staying close to someone is too emotionally costly. Yeah, I can imagine having a brother or a sister who votes in a way that could get me deported, having a close friend who votes to take away my rights or even my protections. So these are deep hurts. That's why so many people are asking, how do I stay close to someone whose choices I feel like they're against me? You see, these are not small issues. They bring anger, pain, confusion, and even disappointment. And let's be real, people have limits, Nobody have to stay in a relationship where they feel disrespected, unsafe, or constantly hurt. So protecting your peace matters, and setting boundaries matters too. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.